sell out. Please don't sell out.
You're in tune to Roots FM 96.1 on the FM band. It's now time for Make We Talk Tuesdays with Jeffrey Tavares.
Good morning. We're listening, watching from around the world in the Eastern Caribbean. This is Roots on 6.1 FM. Make We Talk with yours truly, Jeffrey Tavares, the Defender, and Wilfred Radigan, the Rebel.
Yes, sir, good morning.
Yes, sir. We're going to speak about Jamaica's democracy. Is the democracy in this country at stake? We're going to speak about that. We're going to speak about the recent SOE. We're going to speak about the corruption of $13.8 billion. Petrojam scandal of $5.3 billion. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information of $700 million. This morning, Jamaicans from all over the globe, from around the world in the Eastern Caribbean, is watching us this morning. People all the way from South Africa. People from London, England. I have some family members who live in London, England. They're up at this time, you know, it's in the evening in London, England at the moment, and they're watching us. I know Mr. Rattigan has some of his in-laws over there in Johannesburg, South Africa. And,
yes,
you know, they're all up watching us to see what is really going on in our land of wood and water. Is Jamaica water system going to be privatized to private investors, the NWC? The Ministry of Health is in crisis, where you have the bathroom facilities worse than Riverton Dome. Yet billions and billions of dollars in donor funds and loans is given to the health sector. The police force, they don't even have a proper, some of them don't even have proper vehicles to drive. They've been calling Wilfred Radigan to buy engines for the cars. And the Minister of National Security and Justice, along with the Commissioner of Police, or should I say no Commissioner of Police, I hear this morning the Prime Minister looking out against our good friend Rowan James. But let me say something this morning. If what Corporal Rowan James is saying, who is the chairman for the Police Federation, if what he's saying, Prime Minister Holness, if it is a lie, then come and tell the people of this country that what Rowan James is saying is a lie. And same way, Prime Minister Holness, you went into the Parliament of Jamaica to justify, to bulldoze down poor people's houses and land in Burnett Lodge, that there's criminal elements selling off the land. The question to you this morning, Prime Minister Holness, is the principal of the school in your constituency, is she a part of the Klansman gang? Is she a part of the criminal element that is trying to sell off the lands, Prime Minister Holness? Anyway, I behave myself this morning. The rebel is on. The man from Waterhouse, good morning to all my friends over there in Waterhouse who's listening to us. Rima Jungle, Tivale, according to Ronita Adams. Good morning. The Defender for Poor People, Jeffrey Tavares, is on, along with the rebel, Wilfred Radigan, former FBI agent, attorney at law. Mr. Radigan, good morning to you, sir.
Yes, good morning, Defender. Good morning to your listening audience and your viewing audience. And also a special shout out to the fireman, Conrad O'Brien, on
Indeed.
Straight Talk 93 FM. I was just on his program and skipped over to come join your program because you know where it go. You know, we have to support each other. It's one fight, one team. So
yes,
that's where we are.
You know something, Mr. Rattigan? This morning I got up when you and our good friend Mr. Brian called me, before I got up, I was lying in my bed and I was thinking about our country. And I said to myself, I come on every Tuesday or every time I get to come on, and we just, I'm just talking and talking. What can be done to our beloved island? Here the Prime Minister give out another state of emergency, SOE. And, we say to ourselves, because he's saying that's not the only crime plan, and that's not crime plan that he has in his back pocket to fight crime. Then tell us what else you have, Prime Minister. Corporal Rowan James is saying that we need boots and whatever. And he's saying to us that, the Prime Minister is saying to us that whatever Corporal James is saying is nonsense. In other words, he did not call Corporal James' name. But anybody who have common sense should know that he's talking about the chairman of the Police Federation. Because the chairman of the Police Federation, in minced word this couple of days ago, at the funeral of a slain colleague who wasn't wearing a ballistic vest, was gunned down in front of the police station in downtown Kingston. Mr. Rattigan, we're going to talk about so many things. This morning we're going to start with the SOE. What is your views on it, sir?
The SOE, it can be part of, well, first of all, states of emergency are completely constitutional and legal. The problem is how it's implemented. And the Jamaican court, at least one court, and I believe, well, there are two decisions. I don't know if they came out of the same court, but there are two court decisions standing for the principle that the SOEs as implemented are unconstitutional. And in fact, the government was required to pay millions of dollars to the complainants. And I think in one case, there were about 5 complainants who were detained as a result of an SOE for anywhere ranging from 4.5 months to over a year without being charged. And they claimed that their detention was illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional. And the court agreed with them. Now, the interesting thing about this is we tend to say, well, the Prime Minister did this and the Prime Minister did that and the government did this and the government did that. But there is, and I've been saying it now, and I hope that Jamaicans take to their constitution. You don't even have to get a hard copy. I mean, with the digital age, you can just pull it down. You can get it online. And then all you have to do is read that thing through. Read it through. I'm going to give 3 sources to find out how important the Governor General is. Read the Constitution. Go to the Governor General's website. Read his website, and then look at the court cases that explain, that determine, that interpret the various aspects of the Constitution. Because what you will find is that no state of emergency can take effect without the Governor General's signature. The Prime Minister must go to him and ask for him to proclaim it. If he doesn't proclaim it, then there is no state of emergency. Now there's a state of emergency. I'm being told that a state of emergency was declared today. And it's unfortunate because the court decision still stands. The matter has been appealed. The matter where the court ruled against the government, it has been appealed. So until it's overturned by an appeal court, that is the law of the land. And the government has decided to supersede it on their own. They've decided to, as Fireman would say, abrogate and abridge it and trample on people's rights. Now, there are some who say that the Governor General's role is purely ceremonial. I beg to differ. He is the chief executive, despite what people may tell you, and he has a significant role to play on the legislative side. Parliament cannot start without him. He's the one who's going to appoint all of these people. Now, the Prime Minister may recommend, but he has the Governor General, he approves, he signs off on. And if he doesn't sign off, if he doesn't want to, that's his prerogative, because on his website, he says that he's non-partisan and he's responsible for providing independent and objective guidance to the Jamaican government. Now, for the people who would say, well, he's forced to do it because of his constitutional position. He represents the monarchy, he represents the king, and therefore, you know, it's ceremonial. Let me just read you something here. In chapter 3 of the Constitution, the Jamaican Constitution, it's entitled Chapter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. In section 32, subsection 3, subsection 32 is entitled Exercise of Governor General's Functions. And then you go to subsection 3 of section 32, where it reads, where the Governor General is directed to exercise any function after consultation with any person or authority, he shall not, remember that, he shall not be obliged to exercise that function in accordance with the advice of that person or authority. What that means in plain and simple language is that, yes, he can confer with the Prime Minister about certain things, but he doesn't have to agree with him. He does not have to. It says right here, he shall not be obliged to exercise that function in accordance with the advice of that person or authority. So if the Prime Minister says, look, I want to have a SO, you know, I'd like to declare an SOE, the Governor General has the right, constitutional right to say, no, I'm not going to do it. And then it goes on to section 32, subsection 4, gives him even further powers. So he has the power to say no to the Prime Minister or anyone in the country. 4 makes it even more abundantly clear. Because keep in mind that the Governor General does not represent the people of Jamaica. He represents the monarchy. Subsection 4 says, where the Governor General is directed to exercise any function in accordance with the recommendation or advice of, or with the concurrence of, or after consultation with, or on the representation of any person or authority, the question whether he has so exercised that function shall not be inquired into any court. So you can't even take him to court to say, look, the Governor General is not acting in accordance with his role in the Constitution.
In other words, he's above the law of the land.
He is above the law of the land according to section 32, according to section 3 of the Constitution, 32, section 3, subsections 3 and 4. Again, let me repeat that. Chapter 3 of the Constitution, entitled Chapter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. Chapter 3, section 32, subsections 3 and 4. People, read it for yourselves. Read it. So all of those people would tell you that his role is purely ceremonial and him not have no choice, him have to sign off on things. It clearly says that he does not have to agree with anything, with anyone that he's consulted with regarding any decision. And you cannot take him to court to say that he's not acting in accordance with it. I guess the only recourse is to write to the king, because he represents the king. So the Jamaican courts, they have no jurisdiction over him.
Very interesting. I want you to listen to something. I hope it comes over clearly to what the Prime Minister said this morning. I pray and hope it comes over clearly.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jamaica, and the persons living and listening from overseas to this transmission on social media. This morning at just past midnight, His Excellency, the Governor General, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, declared 2 states of public emergency. One in the entire parish of St. Anne, Clarendon, St. Catherine, and specified areas in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew. The other is in the entire parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, and Hanover. The government, after careful consideration on the advice of the security chiefs, decided to advise the Governor General that it was necessary and indeed appropriate to declare states of public emergency in these areas. Since the end of the last state of emergency, we have seen, unfortunately, an increase in criminal activities in these areas and indeed a threat.
For the interest of time, Mr. Rattigan, you hear what the Prime Minister says, listeners and viewers of this noble program led by Jeffrey Tavares, the Defender, and Wilfred Rattigan, the Rebel, on the advice of the Prime Minister of Jamaica, a state of public emergency was issued in several parishes across the length and breadth of Jamaica. So in other words, if
by
the
whom?
By
whom? By whom?
By the Governor General of Jamaica.
Okay, I rest my case.
If the Governor General of Jamaica do not sign off on it, it can't happen. So the question must be asked of the Governor General. Why is it that you do not question the Prime Minister and the whole administration? Why are you using a state of emergency to solve the crime pandemic in Jamaica?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you, as a Governor General, who you are the chief servant of the people of this country, or the chief servant of the King of England?
Correct.
Because if you don't sign off on it, go ahead.
The chief servant of the King of England, who is the leader of, who's the head of state for Jamaica.
There you go. What they call it? The de facto head of state.
De facto head of, yeah, the Governor General is the de facto head of state of Jamaica because he represents the monarchy, the king, and the king is, based on the constitution, the king is the head of state of Jamaica, not the Prime Minister. People need to understand this. And you said the thing about it, Defender, is that people don't hear, they hear state of emergency, but they don't hear who's declaring it. This is the Prime Minister standing up there and think that, okay, fine, he's doing it. No, he has to consult with the Governor General. And then the Governor General is the one who says, okay, fine, go ahead, you can have the state of emergency. The Governor General, based on the section I just read, he has the right to say, no, we're not going to go there. We're not going to do it. And here's why I mean, why I love my mother to death, man. God bless her soul. Because she sent me to go to school and said, read, boy, read and understand. Because if you go back to same section 13, chapter 3 of the Constitution, entitled Chapter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. If you go to section 20, right? Section 20, subsection 2, it talks about what the Governor General can do with a period of public disaster or a period of public emergency. And they say a period of public emergency is any period where Jamaica is engaged in a war with a foreign nation, or if the Parliament decides that if the Parliament is threatened by subversion, right? Or the third part is if there is a proclamation by the Governor General declaring that a state of emergency exists, not the Prime Minister. That is section 20, subsection B. If people just read the Constitution, then it goes further. Section 20 of chapter 3 of the Constitution, subsection 2. Let me repeat. Go to section 3 of the Constitution, chapter 3 of the Constitution, section 20 of chapter 3 and then go to subsection 2 of section 20. And you will see where it says a proclamation made by the Governor General, and it starts telling you, it says, a proclamation made by the Governor General shall not be effective unless it is declared that the Governor General is satisfied. Satisfied of what? One, that there's a public emergency because of the imminence of a war between Jamaica and a foreign state. Two, a public disaster, hurricane, earthquake, flood, fire, pestilence, pandemic. And three, that action has been taken or is immediately threatened by any person or body of persons of such a nature and on so extensive a scale as to be likely to endanger the public safety. Now, let me break that down for the audience. First thing is that any action contemplated by, any action taken or contemplated by a person or a body of persons, it must be immediate. Immediately threatened. Right? That's the first thing. Well, no, the first thing is actually you have to identify who this person or this body of persons, who these people are. Then the second thing is, once you identify them, you have to say, you have to articulate that what they're planning to do is immediate, and that whatever it is that they're planning to do that is immediate, it is of such a nature and on so extensive a scale as to be likely to endanger the public safety. So the question now is, for this state of emergency, who is the person you're talking about that they're declaring the state of emergency for? Who's that person? Or who are those people? We haven't heard. We haven't heard. And according to this, you have to identify the people. The second thing is, what action have they taken? Or what action are they threatening that is immediate and of such a nature to impact public safety? They can't tell us. They can't. Did you hear him say, okay, we're declaring a state of emergency for Mr. Jeffrey Tavares? He never said that. Did you hear him say, oh, we're declaring a state of emergency for the Jeffrey Tavares group? Never said that. Never said that. Go ahead.
Based on what he said, though, Mr. Rattigan, the rebel, he said that the state of emergency is based on criminal elements in the society.
Who are these criminal elements?
We don't know. Maybe it's the parliament. We don't know.
That's what I'm saying. He should be specific. And then the other thing he has to say is, it's one thing to identify, but then he has to say that whatever they're doing or whatever they're planning is immediate. Where is the immediacy? You know when this would come into effect? Like the incursion in Tivoli. That would be the perfect example of
2010.
Yeah, perfect example of a declared state of emergency. Justified.
Because a member of the press, I think it was a Gleaner, a member of the Gleaner, the Gleaner group, asked him a question. If he intend to have an extension of the public state of emergency continuously, based on what is going on, if the opposition do not agree with him to extend it, he can go back and,
yes,
and get another 14 days again.
Right. The extension would be for 30 days, up to 30 days.
Yeah, but
he can go back. There's no restriction on the amount of time he can go back and ask for 14 days.
Right.
There's no restriction on that. So he can do that. There's not a problem with that. And like I said, then there's another element to this, and that is, how is it being implemented? But before you even get to it being implemented, he hasn't satisfied the requirements here. He hasn't satisfied the requirements. He has to say, oh, and the other thing is that it says that the action that has been taken or is immediately threatened by any persons or body of persons, meaning that the action they've taken or the action they're planning to take, it must be immediate and it must be of such a nature that it will impact public safety. No, they tell us that because of the crime, because of this last state of emergency, the crime rate has dropped significantly. So why do you need another one now? Where is the justification for this new one?
But I think he will say this because in Westmoreland at a checkpoint, we had a checkpoint a couple of days ago. Somebody was brutally gunned down, and an American citizen was gunned down in their home in St. Anne. So he may say that that's the reason why we need a state of emergency.
Well, here's the question then. Why is it that we have to wait for them to shoot down an American citizen or one person at a checkpoint? What about all the murders that were committed from January till November? Why didn't he say, oh, you know what? Why didn't he call a state of emergency for the policeman that was killed? Or the policemen, 6 of them have been killed. Why didn't he call a state of emergency and said, look, people are mounting an attack against our policemen, and this is an attack against the fabric of our society, and therefore we have to call a state of emergency. The problem with that is, who are you going to call it against? Who? To say, well, we're doing it against criminal elements. What does that mean? That means you can call it any time, because Jamaica full of criminal elements, and as you said, some of them in the high places. So it makes no sense. And the Governor General, people need to, in fact, I'm trying to find out the procedure now to write to King Charles to say, listen, there is a court order preventing the government from implementing the states of emergency the way they've been doing in the past, and they continue to roughshod over that court decision, even though it's pending. They're supposed to abide by it, and your representative, King Charles, who's supposed to be a man of good morals, a man who represents good governance, a man who represents the rule of law. He is running roughshod over the Constitution and a court decision by signing off on these things. So you need to check him. You need to get rid of this man. We need to start doing something like that.
We are going to take a commercial break here and make we talk. It is 11:31. We're listening, watching from around the world in the Eastern Caribbean. This is Make We Talk with Jeffrey Tavares, the Defender, and Wilfred Radigan, the Rebel. We'll be right back.
Please don't sell out. My Highland don't sell out.
Become the hero on the scene by taking the COVID vaccine. Get vaccinated as soon as you get all the facts. Don't listen to the rumors. This vaccine might just make it possible for teachers to sit face to face with schoolers. This vaccine make it safer for everybody, from the young to the elderly. Don't you want to go back to living normally when things were more orderly? And if you want to live a long good life, then we all have to do what's right. So let's get vaccinated along with the heroes on the front line.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Showtime! DJ Swing Promotion proudly presents the return of Showtime. Clarendon meets Kingston on Saturday, December 10, 2022 at Strings Variety Store, 50 Olympic Way, Kingston, 11 Jamaica. Featuring Black Her, Ras Bogle, India Celine, Najee, Mr. Bertus, Sensa T, Ashore, Patrick Badu, Emmanuel Chin, Jabi, Anilian, Just Chris, Nature Ellis, and Gotcha. Clarendon Massive, Bubba Wiseman, Emmanuel Stain, Stratos Garden, Garrison Youth, Volcano, Hammer One, and Swagger. It's gonna be awesome. Music will be provided by Creation Sound with DJ Candyman and DJ Rubber. Guest DJ Mark Watson, and of course, yours truly will be the MC. It's gonna be awesome. Lots of giveaways will be happening, so make it a date and don't be late. On December 10th, the return of Showtime at String Variety Store, 50 Olympic Way, Kingston, 11 Jamaica. Make sure you come out early.
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Hi, I'm Marcia.
I'm Adrian. Join us this and every Wednesday morning for Extraordinary Abilities on Roots 96.1 FM. Join us for news, views, and interviews with extraordinary people. Extraordinary Abilities every Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on your extraordinary radio station, Roots 96.1 FM. It's going to be fun, informative, and educational, but most of all, it will be extraordinary. Extraordinary.
This This is Pastor Aretha Taylor with Kingdom Faith International Ministries and Missions, and these are my testimonies. Please join me as I share with you my testimonies about my life-impacting spiritual journey of brokenness, hurt, homelessness, betrayal, abandonment, fear, anger, rejection, abuse, and so much more. Right here on Roots 96.1 FM every first Sunday starting December 4th at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Looking forward to sharing with you.
Welcome back to Make We Talk here on Roots 96.1 FM. Where we're listening from around the world in the Eastern Caribbean. I'm speaking to Wilfred Radigan, former FBI agent attorney at law, dubbed himself as the Rebel. I must say good morning to our good friend Wayne Lonesome, and also our other good friend Conrad O'Brien. We're speaking about Jamaica's democracy, the state of Jamaica's democracy. We're speaking about the SOE. We're going to switch gear to corruption now because we don't have enough time here. We're going to speak about Petrojam scandal of 5.3 billion. Ministry of Education, Youth and Information of 700 million. Ministry of Finance, where former Minister of Finance, the man of Yard, Audley Shaw, had a phone bill of $8.34 million. And then we have the $200 million to purchase high-end vehicles for politicians and $16.7 million for a BMW for the Prime Minister of Jamaica's fleet of diplomatical cars or official cars. Then you have the Ministry of Tourism sign scandal. One sign in a Negril cost so much million. Then one sign in a Montego Bay cost 17.8 million. Bringing up to 62 point something million dollars. Then you have the building of garbage bins for $35 million and build garbage bin for. Huh? What is going on in this country? Mr. Radigan, unmute your mic and tell me if you know what's going on. So much corruption. It stinks like Riverton Dome. The Petrojam scandal, and I know you hear nothing about Petrojam scandal.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, you know. Before I go any further, don't get me wrong, you know. The People's National Party has a fear for them scandal. They have traffic euro scandal. They have Cuban light bulb scandal. They have Shell waiver scandal. They have furniture scandal too. All the scandals in this country can pay off Jamaica's debt and build more hospital and school give us. Rebel, go ahead, sir.
You know, Defender, it's a difficult subject, and I'll tell you why it's a difficult subject for me. Because as you know, I come from out the bowels of society. Come from Waterhouse. I used to go to Riverton Dome to search through the Dongo. I never know at times where my next meal was coming from. I sleep on Spanish Town Road. I know suffering. I know it. And when I look on the poor people, and I look how much money has been sent to Jamaica to deal with issues regarding vulnerable communities, otherwise known as poor people. And I say that the monies have not been spent in the ways that they were directed to be spent. When I go back and I look at some of the communities that I left years and years and years ago, and I see that in fact they're worse now. Even though more money is being poured into Jamaica, the communities are worse off than when I left. It's heartbreaking. It's sad. It almost brings me to tears sometimes when I think about those things. Let's take, for example, and you mentioned a whole bunch of scandals, a litany of them.
Yes, sir.
But it's not an exhaustive list because we still have more that you haven't even mentioned. Let's take, for example, the one with the Ministry of Health, because health is very important to a nation. The first mistake we made was and it didn't appear to a lot of people at the time that it was a mistake, but it's turning out to be a mistake, was where we put a marketing PhD in charge of our health system. And we use his title, doctor, but it was misleading because a lot of people thought that he was a medical doctor. Some people still think that he's a medical doctor. Some people in Jamaica, they don't know.
Then it's the same way, let me cut you a minute there, Mr. Rattigan. It's the same way some people in the churches think that some of the pastors are doctors, you know. I have Dr. Metropolitan Premier of the Holy Hill Zion Church, Dr. this and Dr. that. And some of them buy the doctorate in the church. Go ahead, sir. I can behave myself.
Right. So that's the first mistake we made. And we put him there. And we were bragging and boasting when COVID started, saying, oh, he's doing a wonderful job. And I'll never forget, I spoke to a very dear friend of mine in Jamaica, and I said to him, listen, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back because I think it's going to get worse. And it did get worse. Now, here's the scandalous part. Jamaica received, I would venture to say, close to or in excess of $1 billion to deal with the COVID pandemic. I know of 3 agencies that provided Jamaica with amounts totaling almost $750 million. And those were loans. And they were earmarked for 2 purposes: businesses and vulnerable communities. Now, I've done an unofficial survey, and a lot of people did not get those cash amounts because there was so much bureaucracy set up with it, where they have to have a bank account, they have to have this, they have to be able to go online and all that stuff. I hope our country people, not only country people, people in our town, to a lot of people, I should say.
And if even a lot of the taxi drivers and bus drivers hasn't gotten their $25,000 until now.
Yeah, because
where is that money now?
Yeah, the money went back. The money went back to the consolidated fund or whatever fund they call it. But nobody know it was supposed to go back, but nobody has been tracking and tracing those funds, right? And like I was saying, a lot of people, because they're not used to technology, like me, when they set up all of these bureaucratic hurdles, people couldn't jump over them, because they're not familiar with the system. They don't have access. They just want you to come. They just want to say, show up at this center and we'll give you money, you sign for it. That didn't happen. So the money was disbursed to the Ministry of Health to take care of Jamaicans. Now, what we're discovering now is that through the assessment done by the Auditor General, we're now being given the understanding that monies went in and out of the Ministry of Health, and in lots of cases they can't account for the monies. We have monies being sent to agencies or groups for non-COVID purposes. We have them buying 40-something televisions. For what? For what purpose? We still don't know. So money, and I think they said it's somewhere, I think it's either 200 or 400 million US dollars that somehow passed through there without proper accounting. And we just heard on Sunday that the hospitals are in deplorable condition.
Because they're not even bathroom. The permanent Secretary of Health have her, what they call it, ceramic tile and all kind of tile bathroom, Meanwhile, the poor pauperizing people of this country have to be using deplorable condition in the health sector, have to be using some bathroom, and not even Christopher Tufton would not go in there. You see? And the people of the Vumvavi can go up to Tony Thwaites and fly out on their private jet and go to Miami Remember when Michael Mann said 5 flights a day? You see what's going on in this country?
Yeah.
The people of this country pay taxes. This government collect too much the amount of taxes this government collect. Mr. Rattigan.
Yes.
Surpass any other government. And you're telling me that the health sector in this country is at what? You're telling me that people they don't have a proper bathroom to go into and use?
Let me ask you a question.
It's a disgrace.
Well, let me finish up that story, and I want to ask you a question. The story broke this past Sunday that some of the hospitals are in deplorable conditions. No toilet paper, no soap, dirty, no toilet, no water. You know, a whole bunch of things wrong with it. And then the minister came on. The minister was on the radio yesterday, and he said, "Listen, he blamed the patrons and the patients first. Then he blamed the hospital administrators. Then he blamed the regional administrators. Never once did he say, you know what, folks? I am the Minister of Health. I take full responsibility that whatever goes on in my ministry. I was not aware that this was going on. I am now aware, and I will address this issue." That's what a leader would do. You don't blame people below you and says, this one is that one, is that one. No.
But Mr. Rattigan, didn't the Prime Minister in his speech to the Labour Party conference said that he has been getting call about the Ministry of Health? And they're justified.
You're 100% correct. I was just about to get to that, saying that we don't know why this minister is still there, because the Prime Minister said it, as you alluded to it. He said that, yeah, I've been getting calls about, let me see if I don't have it here, but I would read up I took copious notes, but he said, I'm getting calls about services, equipment, and something else. And he said, and they're all justified. And then he went on to say, but, you know, I want to recognize the minister for the job that he's doing. Now, anywhere else that man would be fired. He would be fired. But here he's allowed to retain his position and continue to occupy, not only occupy the position, but also get his salary and the benefits. Meanwhile, the poor people, they're not getting anything. They're not getting proper medical services. So, you know, this is the type of corruption that we're talking about, that we need to do something about it. And I think we're going to come up with a plan so that we can empower poor people and let them know that there are things that they can do. They don't have to sit around and accept this. There are things that they can do to get the attention of the government. Because what we're trying to do here, we're not talking about change a regime or trying to get rid of the government. We're saying we just want the government to be responsive and responsible. That's all. And in the case where they cannot be, like in a case of a Minister Chang or a Minister Tufton or a Minister Williams, where where time and time again they've demonstrated their inability to deal with the issue. They've shown that they're incapable of running the ministries. In those cases, we would say it's time for them to go.
And you know something, Mr. Rattigan, as you talk about the Minister of National Security, Jeffrey, behave yourself. Don't say insecurity this morning. Behave yourself, Jeffrey. Behave. The Minister of National Security and Justice, who is the Deputy Prime Minister. A question was asked on a radio station yesterday, and I find it very funny too. Why? Yes, it falls under his portfolio too, as Minister of Economic Growth, or whatever they want to call it, for cybersecurity, Darrell Vaz. But why is it, even this morning, the Prime Minister is going to Washington to talk about security, and the Minister of National Security not going? Darrell Vaz went to Israel to talk about security and cybersecurity, and the Minister of National Security not going. The question must be asked now. What is going on with the minister? Why is it that he doesn't have a passport to travel?
Look,
Wilfred Rattigan.
Look, let me just say this, that I don't know why he's not going, but it's strange that he's not going. It's bewildering. It's confusing because he's a Minister of National Security, so he should be going. The other thing is that if you remember WikiLeaks, that the cables that came out of the US where they insinuated the minister's relationship with gangs and criminality, right? And it's very clear. It's right there. If you go back and you look at those cables, there is always the possibility that the U.S. government, and I know because I worked for the U.S. government for almost 30 years, that they may have something up their sleeves and they're waiting for him to come to grab him. It's a possibility, because what would happen is that they wouldn't have to send an extradition order. You remember the guy from the British was it the British Virgin Island?
Yes.
Where they caught him in Miami?
Yes.
Similarly. Well, they who knows? They could have something like that where they're just waiting for him to come and then they just grab him. So it could be. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But I've seen it happen before where they just said, look, you know what? Let's just wait for him to travel, because if we send an extradition order, he's not going to travel. It's going to take forever. It's going to languish down there and whatnot. It's easier for him to, have him travel and we'll grab him.
Because I find it very funny. Yes, cyber fall under Daryl Vaugh's portfolio, but securities fall under the Deputy Prime Minister portfolio.
If you go back and you read the consensus on crime and you read the other things that fall within this portfolio, you'll see that cyber is one of them. So it may be shared with the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology, but that's it. It's shared. He has a responsibility too. He has a cyber responsibility or a cyber security responsibility.
And I find it very funny this morning also when I hear the Prime Minister say that he's going to Washington to speak to the Justice Department and other departments and the FBI. He spoke about the FBI too. And the Minister of National Security will not be on, his entourage or his delegation to go. Something not adding up here. Something wrong in a John shop.
Well, look.
Don't you trouble Zion. Zion alone. Go ahead.
It's going to be interesting to hear him talk to Department of Justice and its affiliates, because it's my understanding. I don't know this for a fact. I don't know that this happened for a fact, but I have been told that there is information about several ministers that has been collected by the U.S. government. And you know what? We shouldn't be surprised, because look at the cables out of WikiLeaks. We shouldn't be surprised. So it's going to be interesting when some of these guys show up and they're talking, and the FBI, they're sitting there, because the FBI, before they meet anyone, they do their background. Any leader, they do their background, and anybody's going to sit in that meeting, they know exactly who this person is, what the U.S. government has on this person. So if the person is a criminal, they sit there and they're just laughing and they're just playing games with you, and they listen and they talk, because remember, the first concern of the U.S. government is its safety and security. That's the first concern. Its interest. What is the interest? Even though they'll sit across from a criminal and they say, what can we get out of him? And so when he's sitting there, if he's talking about the whole of government approach, he should see how it's done in the U.S. Every agency who has anything on the Prime Minister or his entourage, they all pull all of that together, and there's a one document. And they're saying, we have this on him, we have that on him, he's this person, he's that person. From the day he was born until now, they have all of that information. So when they're sitting there talking to him and he's talking, they already know what he's going to be asking for. And they already know what the answer is going to be. They do a comprehensive study.
Because I don't think since the goodly Minister of National Security become Minister of National Security, I've never heard that he traveled.
Yeah, and I don't think, and the frayed relationship that he has with the diaspora, I don't know if he would be well received. I mean, they booed the Prime Minister's wife the other day. I think he would get a louder boo. He would get a louder boo. So I don't think he's going to be well received.
Wilfred Rattigan, we don't have enough time. He leave on Roots 96.1 FM. We're trying to go over until about 15 after 12 o'clock, but I don't think we can because a lot of people want to watch the World Cup.
Right.
And you know, but I think at 7 o'clock we will be going live pertaining to the transport ministry. I see we're in the former MD, Managing Director of the Transport Authorities, licking out against Audley Shaw. We're going to speak more about that this evening at 7 o'clock. But what is going on in our country, and we're speaking about now, I wonder if these people have poor people interests at heart.
No.
Because the amount of corruption, the amount of mismanagement of public funds of poor people money, plundering poor people money, and across both administration, none of them no better. No better barrel, no better herring of poor people money. You wonder, and you ask questions, is this going to continue? That we're talking about a 2030 vision where the crime in our country is out of whack, the corruption in our country stinks to the highest heaven.
Look, let me just jump in before I forget this part. You know, if I were given the opportunity to ask the Prime Minister a question, here's a question I would ask him. I would say, Mr. Prime Minister, with all due respect, sir, can you say unequivocally, unabashedly, and without any reservation, that you have never been involved with any corruption, that you are not aware of any corruption taking place in your government, and that you have not been in a position where you could have prevented it, but you didn't? That three-part, one question, three-part, that's a question I'd like to ask him and hear his answer. And remember what I said a while back, that as a lawyer, you're trained. You never ask a question, or you shouldn't, unless you know the answer. And the other one part as an FBI agent is that when you ask a question, you're not asking it you're not asking it to get an answer only. You're asking it to get to the truth. So I ask those questions with those two hats, wearing those two hats.
Mr. Rattigan, ask the question again. Can I never hear you, sir? Me is deaf.
The question is, Mr. Prime Minister, with all due respect, sir, can you, without reservation, unabashedly, state unequivocally that you have never been involved in any scheme, any corruption scheme, any scheme to defraud anyone, any scheme, period. That's the first one. Second one is, can you state unequivocally, categorically, that you've never been aware of any corruption scheme or intent or anything of that nature? And the third part is, can you say that you've never been aware of it and you were in a position to stop it and didn't? So did you participate in it? Did you know about it? And did you know about it and didn't stop it? And did you benefit from it? That's a question I'd like to ask him. And again, remember, I'm going to ask a question based on two principles. One is, you don't ask a question if you don't know the answer. And the second one is, I'm asking a question to get to the truth, not to get an answer. So.
We're live on Make We Talk on Roots 96.1 FM. We're also live on the Make We Talk Jeffrey Tavares YouTube channel. I was just sending information that we should go over until about 12:15, Mr. Rattigan. Can you oblige me, sir?
Yes, sir.
You know, the question that Mr. Rattigan just asked, you know, It is now 11:58. And, you know, we need to say goodbye to Roots 96.1 FM. I want to say to my listeners over there, come over to the Make We Talk Jeffrey Tavares YouTube channel. We're going to continue. And my deepest condolence to Mr. Russell Hammond's family. He's a former member of parliament for Central Westmoreland who passed away. My condolences to his family and other members of his deeper family, you know, extended family. I am Jeffrey Tavares saying thank you all for listening to Jeffrey Tavares the Rebel, Jeffrey Tavares the Defender, and Wilfred Radigan the Rebel, returning to the studios of Roots 96.1 FM.
Monkeypox is in Jamaica. If you are experiencing fever, intense headache, muscle aches and or rash on the skin, you must isolate immediately and call ahead to your health center or doctor before visiting. All members of the public should wear a mask immediately and